things that have happened during the life of the Prophet ﷺ. So remember, these are all mu'amalat related topics, general principle, everything halal except what is haram. The issue of women going out, women working. With mu'amalat, everybody takes it, everything permissible except what is prohibited. What we're doing by going through what has happened during the life of the Prophet ﷺ is to try and understand a bit more of what was life like then. What do we get from hadith? Otherwise, even our mental schema, our mental idea of what was life at the time of the Prophet is distorted by a lot of what we see today in Arab societies. Yeah. The tendency for us is to feel that the kind of lifestyle that is present in modern Arabia or the Gulf, or say Saudi Arabia, that is what existed at the time of the Prophet. That the way they have jalabiya today, that's what they had then. You know, that's closer to the Sunnah. That little round thing they put on their heads, yeah, that maybe even the Prophet used to wear something like that. But the social structure that they have now is what used to be there. A lot has changed in Arab culture. And this is why it is important to look back into the seerah. What was life like then? Yeah. Otherwise, a lot of questions you are asked, you will say yes or no based on the picture you have in your head. Yeah. So it's important to get the right picture. This is why seerah is very important. Yeah. It's not sunnah, it's seerah. You know, you just understand what did people do? How did they do things? And even in the hadith, it's not just you read what is the hadith saying, but you try and understand from the hadith, what can you get about that society? So on page 50 we look at other women going out for various purposes. Is there a verse that prescribes seclusion for women? For some quote this verse where it says وَقَرْنَ فِي بُيُوتِكُنَّ, that women should stay at their homes, and they stop there. And then of course you say, but then why does the Quran or the Sunnah prescribe hijab? It assumed you are wearing hijab because you have to go out. So that discussion for those interested there. And on page 52, would it be better for women to confine themselves to their homes? Yeah. Would that be ideal? And this usually comes because there's an assumption that women all have little children that require them to spend time at home. Yeah. Some women don't have children. Some, the children have grown up. Some women are grandparents. Some women play active roles in society. And some of these roles are fardu kifaya. They are essential that women should play in society. And no one else can play these roles except women. Whether it's in the area of healthcare, whether it's in the area of teaching. Besides the fact that, let me put it as a question, what job can a man do that a woman is not allowed to do? What job can a man do that a woman is not allowed to do? Just remember this.
Can you ask, how far can a woman go politically? How far can they become leaders in the society?
Anything in the Quran prohibiting women from the highest level of political leadership? Nothing.
Hadith.
Anything in mutawatir hadith?
Because people keep arguing that women are emotional. Is that a good argument? That women are emotional, so therefore they cannot be leaders in society?
Sister, if somebody is coming with some social psychology reason, that's not Quran, that's not Sunnah, that's social psychology, and then you are social psychologists, or you are clinical psychologists, or whatever, you know. If it is what is the Quran, Sunnah, in other words, because if that's the reason we're going to take, then it's not Quran, it's not Allah, it's not the Prophet, it's something else, okay? I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but the argument, if it is people are emotional, everybody is emotional. It's just we differ in how we express our emotions. I mean, wars are not the product of logic. Greed is not the product of logic. Okay? You go into prisons and you say, is crime the product of good thinking, or emotion and greed overtaking good thinking? Who do you find more in prisons? Okay, like is ending up in prison a rational thing, or is that proof of emotion gone wrong? So it's not about who has emotion, who doesn't. Yes, it's easy for men to say women are emotional, but you have to say, what exactly do you mean? The word emotion covers a lot. Is it they cry easily? Is it they get angry quickly? Is it they quickly become violent? I mean, these are all emotions. Which one are you talking about? So, they commit more murders? So, that's why I'm saying, if somebody wants to say they're emotional, their premenstrual stress or premenstrual tension predisposes them to that, we can discuss that. But that's not what the Quran says, that's not what the Sunnah says. If somebody is coming up with that, then is the assumption that that's all women or some women? You know? And then you would say, well, if you're going to say general, no exceptions, but then we never decide our leadership on general. Not just pick anybody off the streets for leadership. So, Quran, if you say qat'i, what is clear from the Quran that would prevent women from leadership? Nothing.
And there's a story of Queen Sheba, right? She was the leader and Allah did not condemn or whatever.
Which then, yes. Point the sister is making is the Quran actually praises Bilqis for her leadership. Yeah, she was consultative in her leadership, and she helped her people, and she gradually guided her people to Islam, to Sulaiman. So she was a good leader, and the Quran acknowledges that. So if you say from the Quran, does the Quran seem to have a problem with women in leadership? No indication of problem. The only woman who was a leader was actually praised for her leadership skills. But we're not looking for support from the Quran. It's mu'amalah. Everything is halal except what is haram. So we want to find, is there any prohibition? There's a verse that is usually quoted where it says, "Ar-rijalu qawwamuna 'ala an-nisa," that men are qawwamuna, and it comes from the word qama, to stand for, but it's interpreted to mean maintainers or caretakers of women. However, because it says bima faddala wa bima anfaqu, bima faddala ba'dhum 'ala ba'd wa bima anfaqu, that is the verse that scholars understood to give men the responsibility, financial responsibility for taking care of their families. And so the understanding of the verse was, this is not a verse that is saying, because I am a rajul, I am qawwamuna over your wife or over your mother. I am not. You are. This verse, and you find the elaborate discussion on it by Sayyid Qutb. This verse is simply saying men are financially responsible for the women under their charge. That's it. It's not every man is responsible for every woman. So even though it's ar-rijal, men, qawwamuna ala nisa, women, it's not all men are responsible for all women. Yeah. Certain men who are married are responsible for certain women who are those he is married to or his daughters. And so this verse is only tied to the domestic context of a man financial responsibility. Because it says, وَبِمَا أَنْفَقُوا, in other words, with what you spend on them. Who do you spend on? You spend on those who you're expected to spend on. That's where the wife gets her rights from. But no other woman can come and say she has a right for me to spend on her. What's my business?
If we take this verse saying that one witness of men equivalent to 2 women, can we use the qiyas in this manner?
But in areas where women were more competent than men, like there was a mix-up in childbirth, women's witness was the only one accepted. Men's witness was not even accepted because women were more competent than men in that area. And in authenticity of hadith, men and women were equally competent.
And for the fara'id, women get lesser.
No. The daughter inherits more than her grandfather.
For the direct lineage, like the son, the daughter,
It
that
all
one is
depends
good
on-
to a few layers already.
No, that's why, depend on who you pick and who you compare with, the women could inherit more than a man. She could inherit the same, she could inherit less. If you pick brother and sister, then you say, okay, the brother is inheriting double what the sister is inheriting. But if you've got 3 brothers or brothers and sisters, and the parents are dead, one brother dies, but he has no children. His remaining brothers and sisters will inherit from him, 50-50, no difference in the gender. How much you get is not tied to your superiority, it's tied to your responsibility to take care of others. So it doesn't make you anything, it just makes you more responsible. So, again, that's all on the domestic level. When it comes to Quran on women in leadership, there's nothing prohibiting women from leading, not from the Quran. If you say Sunnah Mutawatir, there's nothing in the Sunnah Mutawatir. If you come to Sunnah Ahad, there is what they call Hadith Garib. It's Ahad, but it's Garib, meaning it's only one chain. Ahad could be 1, 2, 3 chains. Could be Garib, Aziz, Mashhur. It is a single chain hadith narrated by a gentleman called Abu Bakr. Not Abu Bakr, Abu Bakr. And in Ibn Hajar is in Sahih Bukhari. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, who was narrating the hadith and discussing it, mentioned the different interpretations scholars have given the hadith. Because if you look at the context of the hadith, even if you look at the hadith before it, the hadith was talking about the prophecy that the Quran had made in Surah Al-Rum about the Persian Empire who had conquered the Romans, and they would be conquered too. The Persians were also the ones, when the Prophet sent a messenger, they tore the scroll, killed the messenger, and the Prophet ﷺ prayed, may Allah tear them the way they tore the scroll. And the Prophet was sitting when someone came with the news that the Persian king had died, and instead of putting his minister who is like his vizier, his advisor, who was the main political mind there, they put his daughter. The vizier left the kingdom. So the Prophet was given the full detail, like what had happened. And the Prophet ﷺ said, this now is tied to the versions, because it's a single chain hadith. It's a hadith that comes as one, but other people teach it, it ended up being about 22 chains. It had tree diagram. In one of the versions, the Prophet said, the nation that is led by a queen will not succeed. In some, that nation that is led by a woman will not succeed. Which nation? In another hadith, it just says, a nation, which will be taken general, meaning any nation, that is led by a woman will not succeed. So depending on whether the scholars interpret the hadith in the context, some understand it to just be a description of the fulfillment of a prophecy. Because Allah already prophesied that the Persians will be conquered by the Romans, and it was already, everybody was expecting it to happen, and with that political change, it was understood that's what's going to happen, and that's what happened. That was when the empire broke down and Romans took over. Now, from the point of view of the context, you can interpret the hadith in its context, and you say it is about the fulfillment of a prophecy, and that you're sure about. You can say, but it is also a general rule that a nation that is led by a woman will not succeed. And some interpret that. Even if you interpreted it to say general, a nation that is led by a woman will not succeed, some would tell you it's still ahad hadith, single chain. Because it's single chain, it is dhanni. It needs supporting evidence from the Maliki and Hanafi point of view to give it more strength. The area would be, did any of the Sahaba have a problem with women in leadership? Aisha, radiallahu anha, led the delegation of women. She was a woman, she led the delegation against Ali. They tried to reach a peace treaty. Unfortunately, hypocrites messed things up, and history is now history. But she had Sahaba like Talha and Zubayr, and she herself was known as among the Kibar Sahaba, the knowledgeable ones. How can an issue to do with women not have been known by a woman? Why Ali and all the other Sahaba had not a single word to say against Aisha being a leader? Nobody had a problem. They had a problem with the political reason, because Aisha wanted justice. To Aisha, you can't kill Uthman and no consequence. You'll be at large. So to her, it was justice. To Ali, justice was too expensive. Those who killed Uthman were too powerful. You'll end up killing so many people just to ensure justice. Forgiveness was the best at that time. For Aisha, we cannot stay with people above the law. There's just two paradigms.
But in the end, I heard so many scholars saying that the one who sided Ali is the most pleasing to Allah.
That's for Allah to decide. That's for. I mean, did the Prophet say that?
No, there's a, I can't remember, but there's a link of hadith. Like if I'm not mistaken, Ammar will be killed on the side of Ali, right? And then that is a more appropriate side rather than the other side. So can we take assumption that Ali is on the more...
The question of who was right and who was wrong regarding the reason for fighting is a separate issue from was the leader a man or a woman. Okay? a lot of the criticism comes from the conflict between Ali and Muawiyah. That's separate from Ali and Aisha. Ali and Aisha didn't have a problem. Because when they sat to discuss their problems, they were resolving it and they had even come to a conclusion of peaceful agreement in the night. And they were going to just wrap things up the next morning. But those who were involved in killing Uthman, because with the troops of Aisha and Ali, they were strong enough to handle any opposition. When, in the night, those munafiqun who had been involved in killing Uthman realized that if this peace treaty, like if everything goes well, they're in trouble starting tomorrow. So at night, they just did a surprise attack on Aisha's camp. And Aisha's camp thought that Ali's camp had attacked them. So they fought back. And by the time sun has gotten in the morning, etc., it was all clear what had happened. So many people had died. And it's a sad story. And that's why most of the Sunnis did, you don't judge Ali, you don't judge Aisha. They did what they thought, but probably they were not sufficiently politically mature. They probably underestimated what Munafiqun could do. Allahu Alam, if people who were leaders in Mecca before, like Umar, now they were among the leadership, Abu Bakr, Uthman, Allahu Alam, whether they wouldn't have thought that these people, if they could kill a caliph, they're not going to sit and watch this happen. That they would have wrapped things up faster. Are those lessons for subsequent generations to learn? Wallahu alam. But that good people can make big political mistakes. And we learn from that. But it's not for us to start saying who is right, who is wrong, when justice is a maqasid and so is compassion. But on the question, if Aisha had no problem with women leading, and those who supported her in spite of her being a woman, and on the side of Ali, nobody criticized Aisha because she was a woman, the single chain Garib Hadith has no other support. And so the question is, what else gives support? And it's some of what you've already mentioned. Some say, oh, but her witness is half. Oh, but her testimony is half. Oh, but men are the ones who take care of women. And oh, her voice is aura too. And you pile these all together, and it gives you an idea of, if this is this, and she's not supposed to even be intelligent, and this, if you add everything together, how can she be a leader? Of course she can't be a leader. No. But that's because of certain conclusions that have already been established on weak evidence. And that's why, for every piece, don't handle the topic together. Look at the evidence one by one. Yeah. Is this really supported by anything? Now when it's, men are superior to women. Based on what? Based on what? Adam. How is Adam superior? In fact, from the Islamic point of view, he's the one who went and ate the fruit. What is superior?
There's no prophets amongst the women.
That you know of. What makes a person a prophet? Revelation. What else?
No, not revelation.
Okay, what makes a person a prophet? Sorry? Character? What makes a person a prophet? How do you know somebody is a prophet? A name is mentioned in the Quran, say he's a prophet. How are you sure a person is a prophet?
Mujiza.
Okay, a miracle? Anything else? Okay? Communication with an angel?
The books.
Books? Did all prophets have books?
No.
I thought you said there were no books. Did any woman have any miracles?
Yes.
And any angel speak to any woman?
Yes.
And that's why Ibn Hazm, Juwayni, number of scholars say women can be prophetesses. It's only Rusul, messengers who have a risala, that Allah will choose men. Why? I mean, think practically. Most societies, women were oppressed. If you're going to bring anybody to bring reform, you will most likely bring a man. If anybody was going to be abused, it will most likely be a woman. So they're what you call practical considerations, but not a basis to say then men are superior because Allah will choose some men to be prophets. And, you know, you can say prophets are superior, but it doesn't make you superior as a prophet. All I'll say is, always go back. Is something tied to urf? Is something tied to what? And in Sharia, when we say urf or ada, they specifically mean good urf. Yeah. It's not because it's your culture, therefore it's automatically respected by Sharia. But it's a good part of your culture. Yeah. If it's a harmful or bad part of your culture, it's not considered urf that Islam tolerates. So when it says al-ada muhakkama, or culture is a source of Sharia, it's not bad culture. By definition there, they mean the good parts of your culture, the parts that are ma'aruf. Yeah, the parts that are good. We need to go a bit more quickly. Would it be better for women to stay at home? Depends on the woman, depends on the work. Does Islam enjoin men and women to avoid being among each other? That wasn't what took place at the time of the Prophet. What Sharia has is guidelines. You know, page 54, 54, near the last paragraph where it says, with reference to this incident. So just the paragraph before that, it says, the interaction between genders in Islam may even go as far as a wife or bride serving her husband's guests. Several hadith in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, for instance, narrate the marriage of Usayd and Abu Usayd as-Sa'di at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, where the bride, Usayd, was serving her male guests, including the Prophet. With reference to this instance, Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani says, from this hadith we conclude that a woman is permitted to serve her husband and his male visitors, just as the husband is permitted to serve his wife. It is evident that her serving the visitors is allowed only if there is no fear of temptation and if she is properly dressed. If the wife is not properly dressed, as in the case with majority of women at our time, that is according to what's it called? This is Gardawi's thing. Her appearing in front of him is haram. So, generally, and once you are behaving modestly, you're dressed well, I mean, you behave as a good Muslim, that's what Sharia is concerned about. The man can serve the female guest, the female can serve the male guest. You can give this one a bar of chocolate, you can give this one a bar of chocolate. They're like, this is halal, this is haram. And that is why, in some cultures, it's not just, like in some Arab cultures, you will never find this. You go to the traditional Arab home in some parts of the Gulf, and you go to see a friend, you will never get to say Salamu Alaikum to the wife.
Yes.
Yeah. You only know the guy. And sometimes you think It was the devil coming. And I'm not using that as a stereotypical example. It's because I have seen it again and again and again and again. Yeah, hold on, we're coming. And then you hear brrr. You know, like the house being cleared just because you're coming in. You're climbing upstairs. And this one is coming down. I'll shield the wife against, like as if I was going to do something. Maybe I look like it. But in some cultures, that's the man's way of showing he cares. Okay, so if you look at the way the man thinks, the wife feels my husband values me. You know, he's even so jealous, he doesn't want anybody to see me. And she's happy about it. No problem. Okay, it just takes time for that to register that, oh, okay, that's what it's about, so maybe I want to do that after all. On page 55, does the fitna of today not demand strict segregation? And whatever fitna you have today, the fitna of Jahiliyyah was much greater. What is the fitna of our modern society that didn't exist in Medina?
What's that?
Not even saying Makkah.
What's that?
Sorry?
What's that?
What's that? There was more practical problems in Medina than WhatsApp. Yeah. What kind of dressing do you have in modern society you didn't have in Meccan society or even in Medina society? Jeans? You read how Aisha describes the dressing of some of the women, particularly those that were professional prostitutes. They weren't Muslims. So, you know, they minded their own business. They went to bed with their own business in their working clothes. But she said the whole front will be open. Skirt would be slit from the thigh all the way down. They would have a tattoo. Shave their eyebrows. Their tent, they would have a red flag. Everybody knew that. They moved around. They were advertised.
Appetizer.
In Medina.
So, Prophet didn't do anything to stop their activities?
You don't have, no. When they embraced Islam, you know, that's why in the bay'ah the Prophet did with some of these women, he would even emphasize, you will worship none but Allah, yes, and you will not commit adultery. No, we will not. Under normal circumstances, why would you ever, somebody embrace Islam and you raise the topic of adultery? You know. Do you do that today? Yeah. Sisters embrace Islam, all right. One God, yeah, and no adultery. You know, like, what's your problem? But it was because that's what these women, you know the way in some countries, prostitution is just a job. Like, what's your problem? And for certain clans, they had, that was the job. And that's how they marked themselves. Before, without going into details. But when some of these women embraced Islam, the Prophet made it clear that in this religion you can't carry on with this profession. And they accepted. Yeah. But those who didn't embrace Islam, you don't enforce your hijab on non-Muslims. Sharia is for Muslims. You stop there. Others would follow their own laws. I know we like to impose our own on them. On hijab, we'll just go through the main topics raised and then a question the brother raised then. The concept of hijab, basically every society has got its own dress code of what is decent or indecent exposure. But some societies over the decades and centuries have just been reducing, particularly what women wear. Men's own has also been decreasing, but I think women's has been the most drastic, particularly after the so-called sexual revolution. Is the veil not too restrictive for women? Depends on the women. Is it not so that the hijab is supposed to be the black chadors that present Iranian women wear with the black face veils of Saudi Arabia and the burqas of Afghanistan, etc.? The Prophet ﷺ did not specify any design for hijab, just mentioned what needs to be covered. And so a lot of it was tied to urf. In North Africa, they had different styles of hijab. In Iran, they had their own style. Malaysia, Pakistan. Key thing was just to cover what needed to be covered, the way it should be covered. Why do Muslim women insist on wearing hijab now when times have changed and many live in countries where most people did not wear hijab? Even during the time of the Sahaba, most women didn't wear hijab, but Muslims were required to wear. So just because the surrounding culture is dressing less doesn't mean you dress less. If hijab has so many benefits, page 60, why do people of other faiths not also wear it? But we mentioned in different religions, Orthodox